day to you and welcome to the third episode of my new podcast, One Woman is Twice Two Soldiers, my adventures within living history. My name is Caitlin and I am your hostess. And on this podcast, we're going to explore things that involve living history. So the wardrobes, the clothing, and also how I incorporate things I've learned from the eras I do living history into my everyday 21st century life. And that's sort of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm titling this episode, Curating a Simplified Wardrobe for Life's Many Stages, Using What I've Learned from Living History, which is a long title for a simplified wardrobe. And if you hear me meowing in the background, I apologize. I have a cat that will not shut up. And I also want to talk about how making your own clothing does not always have to be very expensive and can be done super cheaply even with high quality materials. So let's get started. So if you actually see me, I know I look like the so-called modern trad wife. I have long hair, I wear dresses, and I promise I'm not, but I do study history and I appreciate the classic looks in clothing, and I pull pieces from a variety of time periods to create an outfit. So I am not a purist who wears only 1940s clothing or only 1890s clothing. I mix and match my pieces within my everyday, 21st century life. I do wear dresses and skirts 100% of the time, which is not for religious reasons, even though I am religious. I just have exclusively worn dresses and skirts since I was 8. I do not feel comfortable pants. I have a texture issue with things between my legs when I walk. I can't stand it, so I wear only skirts and dresses. I started wearing skirts and dresses when I was 8 because I was reading Little House on the Prairie, decided I wanted to wear prairie dresses, and my mom let me. So I wore costuming prairie dresses for like 4 years of my life in upper elementary. And then by the time I got out of that phase, I just couldn't handle pants anymore, so I just continued to wear dresses and skirts. And I do keep my hair long because A, my husband and I actually like it this way, and B, it is great for the 19th century stuff that I do, to where you actually need fairly long hair. And C, quite frankly, I can't be bothered to have a hair care routine, and when I have my hair long and don't do anything with it, I don't have a hair care routine, which makes my life much easier. We're also going to touch a little bit on this episode about fast fashion, so let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Because of fast fashion, I do make just about all the clothes in my household. I have been sewing for over 20 years, and I have studied sewing techniques in the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. I am a professional seamstress and dressmaker, and I run a small business sewing historical clothing. So I do have a lot of skills in this area, right? I also do collect sewing machines, so I have machines dating from 1860 all the way to, I think my latest one is 2015. And I do keep a lot of fabric in the house. I have a problem to where I thrift most of my fabric, and I only buy fabric when it's over 50% off, but I often can't say no to fabric when it is significantly discounted. So I have just yards and yards and yards of fabric that I don't necessarily have plans for, but I got it at very good prices. So for instance, all my plaid tops, which if you're watching the video, you're seeing me in one of my plaid tops. I purchased 3 yards of each material. There were 6 colors of this particular material, and I purchased 3 yards of each of the 6 colors. And it was about $5 a yard. And I got 2 tops out of each of those 3 yards, which honestly I can crank like 3 of these blouses out in the morning. So even when you count time in, it's very cheaply made blouses, but they're also very good blouses. It's a very nice lawn fabric. They've held up to a lot of laundering. The first blouses I made are probably about 4 or 5 years old. I wear them all the time. They get laundered at least once a week, and they're still holding up. So I pay basically $7.50 per top. I do get a lot of people who say it is, only rich people can make their own clothes because fabric is so expensive, and I do kind of have to roll my eyes. Although I do understand where they're coming from, because yes, if you go to the fabric stores and you go online, fabric can be very expensive, especially if you're like me and will not use any type of man-made fiber. I will only use silk, cotton, wool, linen. If I could get pina cloth today, I would, but we really can't. It's really hard to get a hold of. But at the same time, it's one of those things, you just have to be patient. You have to look for things at thrift stores, antique stores. I recently bought, I think it was 13 yards of silk taffeta for $6 because it was at an antique store, and I found it and I knew what I was looking at, and I asked what they wanted for it, and they said $6, and I said, yep, I'll take that. Didn't know how much fabric was on the roll till I got home, but it ended up being, I think, 13 to 14 yards. And so yes, if you buy things at full price at the fabric stores, it is going to be very expensive, and you will not often save money from buying fabric that way as opposed to just buying a finished garment. But if you are meticulous and you actually thrift things, and even when you're not looking for clothing, if you keep your eye out at antique stores and thrift stores, and a trick I use a lot of times is I have a couple of good fabric websites that I use a lot, and I get on their mailing lists. I get notified when things are 65% off or 85% off, and I'll go and see if it's something I would actually use one day. And even if I'm not looking for that particular fabric, I'll buy it when it's $2 a yard because I know I could potentially use it one day, and if I have it, I will be more apt to actually use it. Also, making your clothing can assure that your clothing is both well made and will last a long time. I mend a lot of my clothes, and that's one reason that my clothes last a very long time. So even then, I can afford to spend more on clothing even though I actually don't. So I save a ton of money that way. When you both buy things cheaply, as long as they're good quality goods, and then actually take care of the things as you're meant to take care of them and not just throw them away when they get a stain or rip or a burn hole or anything like that. So for me, making my own clothes is very economical. Now, I am not a proponent for just getting rid of things that are still good in favor of homemade things and disposing of all of my old things all at once. So a lot of my husband's clothing is actually stuff he's purchased before he met me because it still has good use in it, and so he's going to wear them out. He has a couple shirts that are getting to the point where he needs new ones, and I have fabric for that, so that's going to be a new project very soon. So as things are wearing out, I'm just taking those clothes and I'm using the fabric into other things. So if it still has a good bit of life into it, maybe it just has a really big rip and it's not really worth mending, I might save it for baby clothes. Otherwise, I'm making it into rags to clean the house. And then I'll make replacements to those garments to my own standards. And I'm doing the same in my wardrobe, but I've already owned about 70% of my clothing was handmade by me previously, and I was already needing to replace several pieces. So I was understocked in many other pieces, so I just have a lot more homemade pieces than Rhett does right now. So like in the 19th century, it was very common for women, so some women were absolutely making their own clothing. A lot of women were actually using dressmakers for at least part of the dressmaking process, even if it was just the fitting parts of dressmaking. But me being a professional dressmaker, I have the skills to do all that myself, and so not only do I make my own wardrobe, but I do maintain it, and we'll talk about maintaining a wardrobe in a bit, because that's a very important part of what I've learned from the earlier centuries. So let's start with what I expect from my wardrobe. First and foremost, I expect practicality in my wardrobe. I work with children, I have animals, I garden, I keep a home, I cook meals, and I bake, I do yard and farm work. So I need to fit and measure people, bend over tables to cut fabric, sit for long hours at machines, or doing handwork. I need clothing that is practical for all of that without having to constantly change clothes as I go to one task to another. My wardrobe must also be comfortable. As stated before, I wear a lot of hats, so it's important to me to be as comfortable as possible to do my work. I do not want any clothing with any man-made fiber due to comfort. Polyester is plastic. I would not wear a plastic bag on my body and expect to be cool in Texas heat, so I wouldn't wear polyester either. I also want to look good in my clothes. I want clothes that fit me, that are flattering, that hide the parts of my body that I'm a little bit more insecure about, and accentuate the parts of my body that I actually like. The most important thing I want for my wardrobe is functionality. I do expect a lot of life changes as far as I am not pregnant, but we're getting to the point where we would like to be, and then also, postpartum and nursing. And I don't want clothes that look maternity. I don't want anything that looks frumpy or super stretchy or it just looks like maternity wear. But I also want a single wardrobe that's going to accommodate all the life changes I expect in the next couple of years without me having to make a ton of different articles. I want the same wardrobe to do it all. And fortunately for me, I think I found something that fits all my criteria and makes me happy. So we're going to talk about it today. So I do not expect this to work for everyone. My style is not for everyone, and that's fine. It's my style. But maybe some of the things that I talk about may give you ideas for your own wardrobe. Let's start off our clothing discussion with what goes underneath my clothes. So this kind of fluctuates slightly. So I generally wear some form of tap pants. I don't do historic drawers because of the fabric between my legs century issue going on. But I do own an original 1920s pair of tap pants that are literally little skirts with a little strap that goes between the legs, which means there's no fabric running together. So I made my reproductions out of a 100% cotton knit fabric, so they're very comfortable, and their baggy nature with an elastic waistband means that they'll stretch as my body grows for pregnancy and also fit after pregnancy as well. For bust support, I do wear bras. I own an original 1940s long line bra and girdle set, and I found that bra was my absolute favorite thing ever. It's lightly boned, just goes to the waist, it hooks in the front, and provides very good bust support. And it was a little too big, so I took the original bra and then I added in some elements from an original 1930s bra pattern that was very similar, and created a hybrid type garment that I actually really enjoy. And this is one thing I probably will have to adapt for pregnancy, because although it does have elastic in the front part, so it will grow a little bit, it's not going to accommodate a late pregnancy body. So I have a couple ideas about how to handle this. I may end up making some that lace up either side so that I can extend it for pregnancy. I've also mulled around the idea of making a form of maternity corset. But as I am not yet pregnant, I don't know whether I prefer a bra or prefer a maternity corset, and so I just made what I normally wear until I know for sure what I actually want for that time of life. So all my slips and bras have these little heart-shaped clasps that I can unhook, or at least that's what I call them, and I can unhook them, and that functions very well for nursing, and then they hook back, which just makes it really easy. I will occasionally wear the 1940s girdle, but really not often. It's not everyday wear for me. So I typically only wear girdles for like fancy dress-up days or parties. And if I need back support for working purposes, which I often do, I will 100% reach for my 1860s corset before I reach for any type of girdle. So since I wear very full and long skirts, I do find that having a petticoat keeps the skirts from clinging to my legs. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, and I don't know the science behind it, but trust me, it works. If you have a single skirt on, you'll find that it gets tangled up between your legs. But for some reason, putting on another skirt underneath the first skirt, instead of doubling the issue, solves it entirely, and then your legs are just free. And I honestly don't know how it works, but it does. And so yes, I do have petticoats. I actually just use my regular 19th century petticoats I use for reenacting, because it's exactly the same thing. So I just keep them in my bedroom so I can use them for modern wear, and when I'm going to living history, I just pull them from my regular dresser drawer, and that just works out. I have a couple of wool flannel petticoats that I keep for winter, but the rest of them are just regular white petticoats, and I keep about 3 of them, and I just change them out as needed. And that's about it for all the layers underneath. For laundry purposes, I do keep a bra and 4 tap pants in a single color, and I keep 4 colors. That way when I run out of matching tap pants for a bra, it's time to wash the bra and wear a new one. And for cost purposes, I can get 1 bra and 4 tap pants out of 2 yards of knit cotton fabric, which I usually buy for $7 a yard. So I can get 4 bras and 16 tap pants for $56. Even with notions like elastic and lace, I pay less for my regular underpinnings than some people spend on a single bra. And it's all exactly fitted to me, which is super nice. My wool petticoats do run me about $20 a piece, which is on the expensive side for a garment, but they work for several centuries, and so in my mind it makes it worth it. Same with my white petticoats. They generally run me about $12, but they're very versatile, and so I can wear them for a lot of different time periods. Let's talk footwear. So I do knit, but I'm a very slow knitter, so I buy the family socks. It's just not worth the time. Plush machine knit stockings were around by the 19th century and fairly cheap, so buying them is still period correct, and they fit with my heirloom lifestyle. I'm not over here trying to do it all. I just want to live a practical and intentional lifestyle, and for me, knitting socks isn't it. However, if I do manage to ever find a original Victorian sock knitting machine, I will buy it and I will start making all the family socks, because those things are cool and I want one. I just haven't been able to find one. I buy socks with fewer than 3% elastic, which can be kind of hard to find. I have 12 pairs of neutral cotton socks, and then I have 8 pairs of neutral colored wool socks for winter. I also buy my shoes, even though I can technically make my own. I decided I could make the family shoes, but honestly I prefer my sanity, so buying it is. It's one thing I'll buy super cheap. So in the 19th century, it's always talked about how to you save and buy quality materials, and I try to abide by this as much as I can, but I do buy cheap shoes. And I buy cheap shoes because I naturally walk on the sides of my feet, so just on the outsides of my feet actually. And so my shoes don't last long because you're supposed to walk on your soles, and I don't. I walk on the sides. And so the sides of my shoes wear out very, very quickly. It is just not worth materials and time to make them myself, and it's also not worth the money to spend on good quality shoes because I find that they last just as long as the cheap shoes do. I also no longer really buy modern shoes. I just wear my historic ones. If they weren't so darn expensive, I would wear American Duchess's Emma boots all day, every day. I love those things. American Duchess shoes don't seem to be made for outdoor use. I find they wear through a lot quicker than a lot of other shoes do. But I really, really like the style, and they are my favorite shoes I have ever owned. They are so comfortable. For indoor use, they are fantastic. If you're just walking around or doing very light, promenading in the garden, fantastic shoes. Love them dearly. So if I could find something very similar that's cheap, I would 100% wear those all the time. So if anyone knows a source for little lace-up boots like Emma that don't have a clunky sole, so I want something kind of nice and historic looking, so very thin sole, and like no heel and they're less than $50, I would love to know about them. And shoes are also one thing I don't worry about natural fibers because again, I wear through them so quickly. It doesn't matter if it's real leather or fake leather. I just wear through them. They don't last long enough for me to even care. So I have a few cheap vintage looking saddle shoes, 2 pairs of sandals that I don't wear. I should probably look into donating. I have 3 pair of cowgirl boots. So I grew up on a farm and I grew up showing goats. And I learned through showing that you have at least 2 pairs of boots. You have your barn boots and you have your show boots. And you don't get to wear your show boots when you're working, in the poopy barn. And you don't wear your barn boots that are gross and nasty in the showroom. And so I have a very nice pair of show boots that are still my show boots from back in high school. They have lasted me about 15 years. And my grandparents bought them for me as a preteen, and I still fit into them. So those are my nice cowgirl boots. And then my old barn boots wore out, so I replaced them with 2 cheaper pair of boots. And honestly, I need to get rid of the blue ones because the blue ones don't fit me quite as well. And I'll just keep the sunflower ones. I also do have, again, my 19th century shoes, but I don't wear them for modern wear. Although I will wear my rubber overshoes when it rains because those actually do help protect my shoes. Now we'll get to skirts. I used to make all my skirts this 1890s walking skirt style, which I do like because I like how they're full in the back but very flat in front so you can walk easier and it makes them pretty and flowy still. However, they don't translate well to a body that's going to change size, and I wanted something a little bit more flowy and feminine, so I've always liked circle skirts. And so when I found a 1950s pattern from Wearing History that features a tie back and a false front, it clicked in my brain that I had seen very similar mid-20th century maternity wear. Now the pattern specifically says it is not maternity, but with very few minor changes, I could make it match maternity skirts and pants that I have seen from the same time period. I added a few inches of length to the skirt because I like my skirts long, and they're long enough to look nice in my opinion because I like long skirts, but they're also short enough to not trip over when I'm walking upstairs. I don't have to hold my skirts when I'm walking upstairs, which I do like. So I extended the flap much further to better accommodate a changing size. And I added a pocket on each side because the original pattern did not have pockets and I refused to make clothes without pockets. So I have 2 very nice giant pockets in my skirts, which are very nice. So because I make my pockets very long, I actually don't have to carry a purse. Everything that I would normally fit into a purse fits in my pockets. So the pattern specifically called for hooks and eyes across the front, so you could change it. But because maternity, I decided I was just going to use these giant safety pins that I have, and I just use 2 safety pins a day, and that way my skirt is comfortable. If I'm bloating, regardless of my body size, it all still fits very nicely. And then the front piece of the skirt, or front part of the skirt, just comes up and it can tie in a bow in the back, or I can bring it in the front and just tie a little knot there. So I have 3 cotton corduroy skirts specifically for winter, which I paid a decent price for. I think I bought, it takes about 5 yards of fabric, so I probably spent, it takes about 5 yards of fabric to make a skirt, and I think I paid $5 a yard for that fabric, so it was probably about $25 a skirt, which is a little bit more expensive in my opinion, but they're really good skirts. And then I have 3 regular cotton skirts, some of which I bought for $3 a yard, and another one I think I bought for $2 a yard, so cheaper. And I have 2 denim skirts, which I forgot what I paid for, but it was no more than $20. Then I have a black linen skirt, which is, did I pay $6 a yard for that one? So $30 for a linen skirt. That's a pretty good price for linen. Linen can be very expensive. I also do have 2 19-teens bicycle skirts from that I use for bicycling and hiking. They are both stained and not adjustable, so they need to be remade. I think I can use the fabric from those into other garments and just buy more fabric, and I think I can do the same thing I've done in my other skirts in terms of making it adjustable, but using the 19-teens pattern for the actual skirts, so they're still really good for cycling and hiking. On to tops and blouses. I do have a couple of regular old t-shirts that I wear occasionally. I did purge through my collection, and I got rid of anything that was not 100% cotton And by got rid of, I mean they're cut up in 2 rags, and I use them for cleaning. Because this is a heritage household, and we don't throw fabric away. I do keep a scrap bin. Actually, I keep 2 scrap bins and a rag bag for this reason. And then I also have a set of 6 plaid 19 teens tops we've already kind of talked about. But I do need to put snaps on the sides for nursing purposes, and honestly, they could really use a waist stay to keep in place. It is on my list of things to do. I do have plenty of extra fabric, so again, I made the 6 more tops in a World War I pattern, which is my favorite blouse pattern ever. I do need to make a few changes because it's a little bit not as tight as I'd like it underneath the sleeves, and I think I can make it fit better, and I think I can make it fit better under the arms. But other than that, love how they fit. They're adjustable in size. I made them specifically to where they have a drawstring in the waist, so I could fit it if I was 9 months pregnant. I could fit it postpartum. I could fit it if I'm bloating. I can fit it if I've lost weight. I never have to worry about the tops fitting in the waist. I also had a couple of other bits of fabric just laying around, and I made a few more. So I actually have 10 of these blouses now, which is a lot and probably more than I need. But I mean, everything about these, you know, the 3/4 sleeves, the V-neck, front buttons, the waist stay. I just love this blouse pattern. So I enjoy having a lot of them. I also have a few knit, I guess a tie detailed top that I got them from Dharma Trading, and then I hand dyed them. So I didn't make them, but I did do some of the work involved with, you know, making them the way they are. And I like how flattering they are on me, so I do keep wearing them. They are 100% cotton. And again, I dyed them, which is, you know, always fun. And then I also have a single cotton knit sweater top from Amazon. I'd like to make my own, but again, I am really a slow knitter, and the pretty knit fabrics, like the decorative knit fabrics you can find, are so expensive. So I would like more of those. I just don't know how I'm going to get my hands on them quite yet. I do also keep some dresses. I do like the 1916 Eloise pattern. It's adjustable. It has many hooks and eyes, so I feel like it would make me, but I do feel like it makes me look pregnant when I'm not, so there is that. It is super cute, and I do have it in 2 different colors. I also have 3 linen dresses that I don't really wear, but I like the fabrics, so I've kept them. I've actually currently taken those and I've put them into my cut down pile, so I'll probably end up making more tops out of those because I think they make very good summer tops, and then I can use excess fabric for baby clothes. But they are in really good shape, so it seems to me like it's a shame to cut them down, if that makes sense. So I haven't done it yet, but I probably will. I also have an original 1940s dress that doesn't quite fit, but it almost does, and actually I've lost 10 pounds, so it probably fits now. And I have a reproduction 1940s dress that I only wear for reenacting, so I don't know why it's in my regular modern closet, but it is. And then last summer I was really into like tunic style vintage house dresses, and so I made 3 of them. I wore one of them completely out. I have a little bit of skirt fabric I think I can salvage for kids' clothes. The other 2 are still wearable, and I do have them, so I can still wear those. And I still have the 2 of them. I don't wear them as much this summer, but I still have them. And I do like the style. So I don't know if I'll make more. It's just kind of a up in the air if I like this style, but I don't wear it terribly often, so let's just kind of wait and see. But it fits all my criteria, so I'm keeping at least the 2 around. For outerwear, I do currently have a bunch of rayon sweaters that I am wearing out, and as they get worn out, I'm replacing them with homemade cotton or wool versions. I have a bunch of scarves and shawls. Some are a silk wool blend that I did get off Amazon in several colors because I didn't have a loom yet. Some I knitted myself, and others I had friends that spun and wove them for me. And since I wear a lot of V-necks for the winter, it becomes very important to fill in the necklines to keep my chest warm. And so a scarf or a little shawl works perfectly for that. I've also been known to borrow my 19th century shawls for warmth, as they're 100% wool, and I have 3 originals and 6 or so reproductions, I believe. They also double as blankets, so that's super helpful. I have not made up any coats yet, but I do have fabric for a black wool one and a brown corduroy one. I just need to actually sit down and do it. I haven't had a coat for 3 winters, and I don't know how I've managed, except for I do have a very nice thick wool sweater, and I think that's got me through 3 winters. But I do need to make my coats for this current winter. I have a couple of sweatshirts from my teaching or college days that I'll wear occasionally when it's really cold, but I'll probably get rid of them once I make up my actual coats. I live in Texas, so we rarely get like extremely cold weather, but I do like to try to keep my options open when it comes to wardrobe. And I guess we can talk lingerie. So yes, I do technically own lingerie. I actually have 1 set now, but fabric for 3 more sets. It's not really probably what you're thinking. When I say lingerie, it's all 1940s and 1930s patterns. And so mostly it's just a slip, which functions as a nightgown, and then a pair of tap pants that matches, and then eventually I will have a little bed jacket for, long sleeves, because the slips only have no sleeves, and then I'll have a bed jacket for slightly warmer, and then I'm going to make a pair of original slippers to go with each one of them. So I have a pink silk set made up, and I have fabric for a green silk set, and then I have fabric for 2 cotton sateen ones. So that'll take me through most of my nightwear. So I guess it's really not lingerie, it's really nightwear, technically. So right now I've been using my original 1930s bed gown, because it actually does match the reproduction, at least in terms of its silk charmeuse in pink. So that worked out very well. And I actually trimmed my pink charmeuse set with leftover lace from my wedding gowns, so that's kind of fun. And then I have some original black cotton net lace for 2 of the other ones, and I have a little bit of my wedding dress lace left over for one of the cotton ones. I think it's probably going to be the purple one. I also have a vintage nightgown that I found at an antique store, and eventually I do have fabric for 2 flannel nightgowns for winter wear, because I needed something with a longer, a high neck, long sleeves and super long skirts for when it gets super cold out here. And so I do actually have cotton flannel when it was on sale for $3 a yard. Bought a bunch of that. And I'll probably end up making some comfy flannel slippers to match those. I am undecided on the style for those flannel nightgowns. I need a slightly V-neck because I can't handle anything going to my throat, because I don't like feeling choked. But I need it to be a high neckline for warmth purposes. And of course, again, long sleeves are a must, but and ankle length hems. I just don't know if I want to copy like a mid-19th century nightgown, or if I want to try something different. I'm still looking at originals to decide what I fully want. And I think that concludes nightwear. So for accessories, I don't have a lot of modern earrings left. A lot of mine have been just corroded or got lost in the 3 moves that I took this last year. I have a few vintage brooches that I wear on occasion, but most often I just wear my original and reproduction Victorian jewelry. Not so much the brooches, but the bracelets, necklaces, and earrings. And then I have a ton of original and reproduction gitana, which is like hair jewelry. And I want to get in the habit of wearing those because I love them. These are my favorite pieces and I love the concept. And I'd like to start bringing them back as a trend, so I'm going to start wearing those a little bit more. Given the nature of my clothing, I don't often wear belts, but I do have a few leather belts. I have a brown one, a black one, and a white one. And I wear those with the house dresses that I wore a lot last year if I need something to pull in the waist. I don't do makeup or my nails, because I just can't be bothered to spend the time or money on those types of things. I have 4 late Victorian style like maid aprons, the bibbed ones with the straps down the back. Pinafore aprons, I think they're called now. I have 2 in cream and I have 2 in gray, and I'll wear them to protect my regular dresses when I'm like gardening or cooking. I have 3 1940s style handkerchief aprons, and I have an original one as well. And then a set of matching hair coverings. I don't typically cover my hair, but if I'm doing something that's really dirty or dusty or like messy, I will, just to keep my hair neat and clean. And that's just something I've learned from the early 19th century and even the mid 19th century, is covering your hair when you're doing a lot of dirty work in the house can keep your hair neat and clean. For hair styling, I have 2 elastic bands left, and I will not replace them when they're gone. Once they're gone, they are gone. I keep a ridiculous amount of bobby pins, and I also have a few waved U-pins for later 19th century use and some straight U-pins for 18th and 19th century use. Mostly I just use the bobby pins though. I have a whole roll of 1/8 inch silk ribbon that closely matches my hair color, and that will replace all of the elastic ties once I get to that point. And yes, I have a whole collection of false hair for historical purposes that I can use for modern wear if I want. Most often hairstyle, I do like an 1870s with a higher bun and then looping the front hair back with it, or sometimes I'll add a fake braid or a false hair to cover it all if I want to do like a statement look. If I'm being lazy, I wear it in a single braid. That's lazy for me. Another nice hairstyle that I gravitate towards is milkweed braids, which is like a 20th century thing, and that's just 2 braids and you twist them around your head and they get pinned down. And now we get to how I maintain a wardrobe, which is really the historic part of all this. Making sure that you're purchasing quality fabrics, not necessarily expensive fabrics, just quality. Clothes that are fitted to each person. I do the 20th century thing, and I finish all the seams because I do wash my outer clothing more often than a 19th century woman would have. Every time I take my clothing off at night, I very quickly examine it, and then I make note of any weak spots or rips, and then they promptly get put into the mending pile. I have a basket specifically for mending. The longer you let a weak spot or a rip sit or get washed or worn before it is fixed, the worse the damage gets. So it's very important to attend to those things as quickly as possible, so as soon as they get noticed. I most often find rips in my skirts from like the fencing around my property, or I find that buttons have popped off, especially on petticoats. That happens a lot. Or sometimes my petticoat waistbands like to pull themselves out. And so that's the vast majority of the mending that I do in my own wardrobe. I do attempt to get out stains as diligently as possible. However, if a stain is particularly noticeable, that's when the garment gets cut up for another use. And sometimes that's another article of clothing for me, but sometimes it gets cut up and gets put into the to be made into children's clothes one day pile. I have a huge to be made into children's clothes one day pile. At this rate, I will not have to purchase fabric for any child until they are 10 years old, because I just have boxes and boxes of fabric and old clothes that are meant to be cut down for kids. And that should honestly greatly cut down on the cost of having children, because kids grow through things very, very quickly, and I won't have to buy any fabric for any of that. So yeah, I do scrimp and I save any fabric that I possibly can for kids' clothes. I'll even piece my own clothing if it means I get to save a yard to make kids' clothes with. And when children eventually wear out clothing, fabric will be kept for cleaning rags for household maintenance. And when the rags get worn out, I keep a rag bag specifically for ratty fabric, and it gets cut up into fluff that I can stuff pillows and such with instead of having to buy batting. So everything gets used up and nothing goes to waste. Which is a very 19th century attitude towards fabric, although they often had a rag man who would buy ragged fabric, and so people didn't have to necessarily keep a rag bag back then, but I don't have that option, so I keep a stuffing bag. So stuffing fluff it is. I've also learned so much about keeping a complete but frugal wardrobe from the 19th and 20th century dressmaking and household practices, and it's my hope that it'll help us save money and then not add to the landfills on the planet. And that about wraps us up, the third episode of One Woman is Twice Two Soldiers. Thank you so much for listening to my modern wardrobe and how I have implemented things I've learned in previous centuries into my modern wardrobe. Next episode will be another Victorian dress myth-busting video where we address 3 more myths and learn a lot about 19th century attitudes towards fabric and clothing. If you watched the last episode, I actually did say that this video was going to be the Victorian dress myths. I just got miscalculated and I forgot an episode, so I apologize for that if you were expecting Victorian myth-busting video. It will be the next episode, which will come out the second Wednesday of July. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me or find me on Instagram or YouTube under Caitlin Kearns. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of One Woman is Twice Two Soldiers. If you did, please leave a review on Spotify or YouTube and share this episode with your friends. And please don't hesitate to tell me what topics you'd like me to cover next time. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next episode.